Hello, everyone. My name is Miranda, and I will be your Enchantress of Avalon, taking you on a journey into the lands magical and mystical and into Avalon. And I do want to note, you can probably see a tail here. My cat Harlow is joining me today. Don't know if she's going to be here for the whole video, but she decided she wanted to be on my lap when I was filming, so she's here. Now, for today's video, we are going to be talking about a favorite topic of mine in Greco-Roman mythology. My absolute favorite myth involves one of my favorite goddesses in the entire pantheon, and that is the goddess Persephone, and she's who we're talking about today. Persephone is a quite obvious goddess for me to really like and enjoy because the goddesses that I feel the most connected to and that I love the most in Celtic and Welsh culture, of course, are Rhiannon and Morgan Le Fay, and they have duality in their aspects, and they're goddesses of a lot of things. So in the case of Persephone, she's very similar. She has a dual aspect. She is the goddess of springtime, the goddess of vegetation, the goddess of flowers. She's also the goddess of death, and that's actually what inspired my look for today. I'm in all black, but then I have a flower crown, and although my makeup is dark, it is sparkly, so I was trying to balance the duality there. And the reason so many people feel connected to goddesses that have duality in their natures, or even triple natures, is that they're complicated, and people are complicated. I know I can relate to the fact that Persephone is both a goddess of life, essentially, springtime vegetation, about everything coming to life, and also a goddess of death. And I feel the same way about Rhiannon and Morgan Le Fay, who have both life and death aspects to them. So I love that. I really do. All of that being said, there are other Greco-Roman goddesses, obviously, that have some form of duality. I'm a big fan of Aphrodite as well, and she has a lot of duality in her, and even in certain versions of her, she has a war aspect, which makes her a little bit more Freya-like, and Freya is a very complicated goddess, so I will cover them in other videos. But let's start with the tale of Persephone today. So Persephone is, as I said, a goddess of springtime and vegetation in the beginning. She was the daughter of Zeus, king of gods, and his sister, very common, they were all related, Demeter. Demeter was the goddess of the hearth, and it was her job to ensure that there were bountiful harvests and that there was enough grain and enough of everything to go around. And this comes into play very importantly as the myth goes on. And the first time we really meet Demeter in mythology is the one that she's most known for, which is the myth of the rape of Persephone, or I prefer referring to it as the abduction of Persephone, because I think it's a little more complicated than that. But rape had other connotations back in the day, which is why it's often translated as rape. Essentially, in this myth, we meet Persephone, who is this beautiful young goddess who is out in this field picking wildflowers with her nymph maidens. Very popular thing for young virgin goddesses to be doing, and most goddesses had nymphs as handmaidens. We see references to Aphrodite having them. Artemis had a whole slew of them that ran wild through the woods with her. So Persephone also had a group of nymph handmaidens. And suddenly, as she's picking these flowers, and I believe it's said that it was asphodel that she was trying to pick, when the ground opens up and out pops Hades on a chariot. He grabs Persephone, the ground closes, and he takes her to the Underworld with him. Now, this isn't as creepy at first as it might seem, because he actually had permission from his brother and Persephone's father, and incidentally also the king of the gods, Zeus, to take her. He'd already brokered a deal. He went to Zeus and said, listen, it's time that I have a wife. Persephone is of age, and I'm interested in her. Would you be willing to allow me to marry her? And Zeus said, yeah, sure, whatever, just take her, it's fine. But what about Demeter? Just take her, I'll take care of Demeter. Okay, fine. And he does it. On Zeus's orders, mind you. Again, I want to reiterate that. This is crucial to every version of the story. And then Demeter very soon realizes her daughter's missing and starts going crazy and searching for her. And eventually she is taken, well, Hecate takes pity on Demeter. And I will note that I know that a lot of people pronounce it Hecate. I pronounce it Hecate, especially in videos like this. I'll be pronouncing it Hecate because that is the Greek pronunciation of the word, so of the name. So that's what I use. And even Hecate or Hecate is technically right. That's the pronunciation that Shakespeare uses in Macbeth. I just want to side note that really quick. I use Hecate as the pronunciation personally. Anyway, so Hecate takes pity on Demeter and decides to help her. And she knew that Persephone had been taken to the underworld, but didn't know exactly why, didn't know exactly how. They then find Helios, who is the living embodiment of the sun. And Helios tells them, oh yeah, he took her. You're right about that. However, he did it because Zeus gave him permission to marry her, which, of course, enrages Demeter. She goes at Zeus, and Zeus is like, okay, whatever, they could come back, and so calls back Persephone and Hades. However, Hades is very cunning, and he gets her to eat some pomegranate seeds when she's in the underworld, knowing that if you eat food of the underworld, you become a part of the underworld. So, at this discovery, because Demeter automatically knows there's something wrong with her daughter, Zeus is like, well, she is part of the underworld now. However, I am going to decree that she gets to spend part of the year in the underworld, the rest of the year with her mother. And that is how they explain the seasons. Essentially, Demeter starts neglecting, and she does neglect. In fact, when she's searching for her, that's a whole nother story. This is told mostly in the poetic hymn to Demeter, the full story, that is. And there's a whole story of her searching. I'm not going into that because I want to focus on Persephone herself. And she had neglected the land, and that's why Zeus is like, okay, fine, I'll bring her back. So what happens is when she neglects the land, when Persephone does leave to go to the underworld, we have winter. It starts with fall when she starts to neglect it because she knows her daughter's leaving, or her daughter's just left, depending on the version. But as she goes deeper into depression, the longer Persephone's in the underworld, we have winter. Then spring is when Persephone comes back. Plus, Persephone herself is the living embodiment of spring, so everything is bright and blooming with new renewal. And then summer, everything's just pure happiness. And I associate Demeter most with summer because of this. And then the cycle renews itself over and over. Here's the thing. There are variants on this tale. Sometimes Hades is not even evolved, and there are variants that I've heard, although I think these are later variants on the tale, where some say they're older, some say they're later. I've seen it told different ways in different sources, where Persephone chose to go to the underworld because she felt pity and felt empathy for these souls that were not being cared for, and she wanted to care for them. So she willingly went to the underworld, and this was her growing into a womanhood when she had previously been overprotected by her mother. Then there is those versions don't really usually involve Hades as much. Then there are versions where she is feeling suffocated by her mother. She loves her mother, but her mother is too controlling. Her mother doesn't want to let her grow up, and she's an adult. She wants to grow up. She wants to be her fully fledged goddess in her own right. So when Hades comes to her and wants to marry her, she's happy to go to the underworld. She wants to do this. Yes, it's a scary new place, and she feels a little uncomfortable, but Hades gives her free reign. In every version, where Hades is involved, he gives her free reign of the underworld. He's like, you could do anything you want to do. You could go anywhere you want to go. You have complete free reign. You are the queen here. You could do whatever you want. And what woman isn't going to want that? You know, they also have the most functional relationship in the entire Greek myths, the entire mythos. They have the most functional relationship. There is next to no stories of them having infidelities. There's a couple variants on their tale where there is at least one infidelity on each side, but they're incredibly protective of each other. And there's all these stories of Persephone getting super angry and taking out vengeance on nymphs who dare to try and seduce Hades. There's all these stories of Hades doing the same for men who look a little too long at Demeter, look a little too long at Persephone. And they truly do love each other, and they are a true partnership. This isn't Zeus lording over Hera. This isn't Hephaestus being cuckolded by Aphrodite, or Hephaestus, whatever, being cuckolded by Aphrodite. This is a relationship of two partners working together, and that's beautiful. Now, I'm not going to go over every myth. I'm not. It's going to knock me a long video. But I will say she is important in the Orpheus myth, as in the Orpheus and Eurydice myth, where she's the one who convinces her husband Hades to give him the chance to try and win his wife back to the world of the living. And she is instrumental in the Adonis myth also, as it is in her care that Aphrodite leaves Adonis when he is a baby, and then they fight over him. Although it's unclear whether Persephone was actually, wanting him sexually or just like wanted him as a son figure. That's unclear. I've read a lot where she wanted him sexually and a lot where it was more of a son thing. Now, I have some books about Persephone, and I'm going to just read through some of her associations. Obviously, they're the obvious ones, like the pomegranate, because of the pomegranate seeds she eats to stay in the underworld. Flowers are highly associated with Persephone, especially flowers like asphodel, as that was said to be the flower that attracted her to that particular area in order to be taken by Hades. Let me see if I can find others. I'm just trying to look for a list. Okay, here we go. Perfect. I knew it was on here. Okay. All right. So, also jasmine, narcissus, crocus, iris, larkspur, lily, violet, and roses. Spring flowers, a flower crown, which she's almost always depicted having a flower crown, which is why I'm wearing one. Also, I love flower crowns. I've always been very associated with the love and death thing. I'm both a very, lively person. I love flowers and the, happy stuff. But I'm also a horror movie buff. And I also like all of the death and the macabre stuff a lot. So it's probably part of the reason why I was always drawn to Persephone, because she perfectly embodies this duality. Again, and I feel also Rhiannon and Morgan Le Fay embodied that same kind of duality in the extremes. Let's see. Pastel colors, the color red, black, a sheaf of corn, all associated with her, as are a torch, an iron crown, because, goddess of the underworld, precious gemstones, the waxing moon, skulls and bones, how fun is that, garnet, carnelian, and red crystals, onyx, obsidian, and dark crystals, bat, and bats. So those are her associations. Just a brief overview of some of them. There are certainly more. And with that, my time is coming to an end for this week. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I am Miranda. I have been your Enchantress of Avalon. And please like and subscribe. And also check out my blog, whiteroseofavalon.life.